Hello there. The season over, and all good things must come to an end, at least for now. That's right, the final football matters of the season tonight. And while we finish, so too seemingly does the Saudi takeover of Newcastle United. We really should talk about that at some stage tonight, shouldn't we? For now, though, welcome along to 2019-20's last Football Matters. Yes, welcome along. Only 40 minutes or so left of the season for us, and only two pundits to spend it with. No Daz this week. We think the celebrations about the Newcastle takeover not going through may be taking their toll on Mr. Williams. Instead, to sift through the wreckage, I think is the best way to describe it, what's happened in the last few days on Tyneside, we have Mark Carruthers back this week and celebrating an anniversary today on Football Matters, which we'll come on to, joining the effervescent, the irreplaceable Mr. Olivier Bernard. Ollie, I would normally come to you first, but Mark is celebrating its anniversary. Sorry, mate. Final episode of the season, coinciding with Mark's anniversary. Huh? Go on, Mark. Anniversary time.
Yeah, 5 years today since I gave in to your bribery.
You sound delighted about this.
Whatever. Yeah.
Can I just point out you're saying whatever, but you were the one who flagged this up to me about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a mostly enjoyable time.
Really?
I'm sure. I said mostly.
Surprised at that stuff.
Some great memories being at Wembley and, speaking to some genuine legends of the game, and Ollie. It's been great. Yeah, here's to the next 2 months.
I thought you would have said, and Ollie, it's been fantastic. Like, not just, I've met some great and Ollie. Like, it doesn't sound right. You know what I mean? Or, like,
I didn't want to give you too much praise, mate.
It's a bit wrong. But let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Okay. Try again in that one. Yeah, I think Mark would have been persuaded, Ollie, if he'd heard last week's story from you about tripping over in front of 52,000 people.
Oh.
Do you not remember this at all? Only happened 7 days ago, mate.
No, it goes quick. I move on. I move on fairly quickly,
Was it definitely you?
No, it wasn't me.
It was someone else. Anyway, happy anniversary, Mark. Nicely coincided as well with it being our final episode of the season tonight. I say season, we haven't been going throughout the season, but only 20 weeks or so, which feels like about 4 years with everything that's going on in the world. But
so does recording each episode. So
well, if that's because it does actually go on for 20 years. Doesn't feel like it at all. It's good to have you both here. Obviously, Daz can't make it tonight, but fantastic to have you both back on. Just before we come on to the takeover, because we're going to be talking about that quite a bit tonight. Big weekend of sporting comebacks. Arsenal coming from 1 down to beat Chelsea in the FA Cup final. Something that's very, very close to my heart. Not necessarily football, so maybe not necessarily right for this show, but Leeds Rhinos in Super League coming from 20 points down with 18 minutes to play to beat Huddersfield Giants. I am still on the ceiling about that, by the way. Yes, I am interested in other sports apart from football. So I thought for this week, for the final episode, for both of you, Mark, what's the best comeback you've ever witnessed? I already have a feeling of what you're going to go with. Ollie, what's the best comeback you've ever played in?
Shall I go first?
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
I've actually got two. One that will probably annoy you and one that won't. I'd say the greatest one that I've seen would be Newcastle Arsenal, the 4-4.
Yep.
Never experienced anything like it in a football stadium. The atmosphere, the noise when Chaktiota scored that equaliser was, that'll live with everyone who was at St James's Park for a long time.
Yeah.
The second one, just because I like being a football romantic, was Thierry Henry going back to Arsenal when he'd obviously left to go to Barcelona and went back to Arsenal. Scored, I believe he scored at the Stadium of Light, didn't he? His last league goal. But the one that he scored against Leeds in the FA Cup, one of my favourite players in the Premier League era, and to see him go back to the club where he created so many memories. To create another one was amazing. So yeah, but primarily I'd say the 4-4 Newcastle Arsenal.
It was incredible. That's the one I thought you were going to say, but a great shout on the Henry comeback. That finish as well was so typically Henry against Leeds. 1-0 in the FA Cup third round, I think it was. Just unbelievable.
Yeah. For me, that one's gonna be remember for being one of the greatest. But there's one that I'm not so pleased about is it was probably last year or the year before we played Man U,
right,
winning 2-0 up after 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They scored. They came back and scored the 93rd minute, I think.
Yeah, well,
to win 3-2. That was quite painful to watch because you could see it happening.
Yeah.
I think on opening 5 minutes we scored the first one, and then 15 minutes later we scored the second one. And I thought in my head, nah, we scored way too quick.
Especially at Old Trafford.
and then all of a sudden everybody was in the box defending, and nobody wanted to. This is for an hour and a half, no chance. And it was painful. I thought we would draw 2-2, and the last second of the game we conceded. That was painful to watch.
What about games you've played in, Ollie? Like, is there anything that sticks out from your playing career? Like, either a good version of a comeback for yourself, or a really horrible one to reflect on?
No, it's never been a comeback. We're either a smashed team or we got smashed. And the famous one is probably Man United, where we lose 3-5 to Man U. But throughout that game, we had the feelings that we were going to win. But at the end, you end up, losing that game, and everybody's thinking, why? How? Because we fell in control all the time, but every time they had an opportunity, they scored. It was just that.
Can I throw a couple in that I can remember from Ollie's time as a player? Firstly, I would say Leeds away when Newcastle were 3-1 down with, I think, about 25 minutes left and won 4-3. And obviously Lono scored last minute. Took Newcastle top of the league. Took Newcastle top of the league at Christmas. The second one as a group stage in the Champions League, losing the first 3 games. And then coming back to qualify for the second stage, or the second group stage as it was then. There's only one team done that since. So
there is. It was wrongly reported earlier on, either this season or last season, that Newcastle, was it Atlanta who'd done it, but then it was Atlanta had done it to made it through to the knockout rounds rather than the second group stage, like you rightly said. That was what Newcastle did.
No, we were the only one until then. Proud.
Yeah, absolutely insane. Well, just one more on comebacks, because I don't know if this is the slightly more jovial one. The wonderful and quite frankly unique Johnny Nicholson on Football 365 has written an article today about how he watched the FA Cup final with his partner, Dawn. Dawn has been quite honest and said she doesn't care about football, not interested in it as such, and he's asked her to watch the final and get her kind of reaction from someone who doesn't really watch the game, and some of the comments that she makes are absolutely sensational, and I must say quite accurate. Is that normal, or is he especially rubbish, shall we say? She thought that Mason Mount looked like he had a cat on his head, things like that. So what I want to, hence the haircut I think it's down to, but anyway, what I want to know from you guys is, have you ever watched a game before where you've been watching it with someone who has made some, quite frankly, either ludicrous... Mark's looking around to see where Jacqueline is right now, just in case that a broom comes around and hits him around the head. But ever watched it with someone who have made ridiculous comments during a game? Can you remember a time or not?
Every Saturday. Honestly, every Saturday, whether I'm at the stadium or in the pub with the boys, you always got that someone who who's just a supporter, knows nothing about the game, and he's just come out with comments. You're just like, oh, come on. I just roll my eyes, like I close my eyes, like I count to 5, and then I keep watching the game. Like it's just annoying sometimes. Yeah.
Do they ever see you, Ollie, and obviously recognise you, and like make the comment and go, "Hey, Ollie, you agree with me? Do you? You agree?"
Quite often, we'll have a little debate on how things could should have been, and end up losing track of the game more often than not. But yeah, it does happen.
We've all been there, mate. Mark, what about yourself? Bearing in mind that your wife is completely out of earshot right now.
Yeah, she is, but I'm not going to do that. For a whole season, I had someone sitting behind me who every time the opposition got over the halfway line used to go, "Are they going to score here?" Like literally, I mean, every time. So it was just
sorry about that, mate. That was me.
Yeah, well, yeah. But yeah, that got quite irritating after a while. But you get them in every ground where there's people who throw out senseless comments and ludicrous comments. But it's all part of the fun of the game, isn't it?
Isn't it just? It reminds me of I don't know if either of you managed to watch the Fast Show when it was on in its pomp in the 1990s.
Football.
Thompson, yeah, the Arsenal fan who just used to shout out random cliches at the game. Always reminds me of that. Fantastic programme, fantastic episode. Right, thank you very much, guys. We're going to go into the show now.
Most Arsenal fans are like that, by the way.
No, probably not necessarily, but hopefully not. Thankfully, Arsenal aren't in the northeast, so we're all right with that one. Not necessarily, anyway. Just a reminder to everyone, you can watch it on YouTube, on Facebook, as per usual, or we keep trying to divert your attention away to our podcast because that is the direction as we ease, touch wood, lockdown restrictions over the next couple of months. That is the direction we want this to go in, more towards podcasts, which is available on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify as well. So like us, subscribe to us, get listening, and get watching. Which leads me on to the big news of the last few days. It is, of course, the Newcastle United takeover. The Saudi Arabian consortium ending its bid to buy Newcastle United. It was understood the Public Investment Fund just simply ran out of patience with the Premier League, but as ever with this story in the past 17 weeks, this saga, there's been all sorts of rumours either way as to the reason for the collapse. Some maintain it may well still be on. Others claim that American Henry Morris is waiting in the wings. Just before we come on to our first guest, guys, who is very, very important tonight because it's going to be a key figure with regards to it. Just, Ollie, first, your reaction to the last few days.
Yeah, quite surprised. I knew they were coming this week because I had the interview the previous week. And, when I did tweet, it was in regards that, they were coming to Newcastle. To sort it out, but it turned out to be a nightmare because that's the last thing you want for the club. I think everybody was ready, to see the new chairman taking position. Yeah. The problem we have now, I find it difficult for Saudi to let it go. Yeah. For the simple reason that they have put a bit of money. Yes, it's nothing for them, but they still have put money to secure discussion and completion. So for me, I'm a bit skeptical in terms of it's not over until it's over. And for me, they said they're fed up. I still think there could be a deal.
You still think it could be on, Mark? Where do you stand on this one?
It's a difficult one at the moment because, by all accounts, the Premier League haven't been informed that the deal has been pulled from, well, at the time of recording anyway. Yeah. It's a tough one because the worst case scenario is Newcastle facing up to another year of Mike Ashley, who I think, to be fair to say, has lost, if not all, the vast majority of interest in the club. And I don't think I think the phrase that's being used is the club wiping its own nose. It'll probably have to do that in terms of going forwards in the transfer market as long as he's owner. So the money that the club has created will be the money that Steve Bruce will have to spend, which won't be as much as it might have been. Certainly won't be as much as it was before COVID. Yeah. In terms of the takeover itself, it's at a weird stage now because we are just looking where it's going to go next. Yeah. If there is still interest from the Saudis, a lot of people saying that. The best thing I think would be now, firstly, for the Premier League to come out and give clarification on where the fit and proper persons test is at. Yeah. Give some explanations to Newcastle fans and to the wider Premier League community as well, because there is a lot of interest in this role. My problem is there's been a lot of noise around the takeover, and that's unhealthy for anyone. Yeah. There needs to be just the only people who are saying anything should be the parties involved, the selling party, so Mike Ashley, the buying party, the consortium, and the Premier League. They are the only people that should be involved in this. I would like to say it's great to see that the potential buyers have made contact with Newcastle supporters to try and forge a link there. But at the moment, we're in a horrible, and I mean the royal we are in a weird situation where we just don't know what's going to happen next. But as I say, I don't think a period of quiet from the potential owners would be a bad thing right now. Yeah. Just to let things settle and then see where we go forward. If nothing else, just to let things settle. There's been too much noise. That's simple as that. And I mean from everyone, by the way. I don't just mean from the parties involved. There's been a lot of rumour on Twitter and a lot of speculation. It's just not helpful for anyone.
Yeah, it's going on and on and on still. I mean, sorry, Ollie, go on. Wonders will never cease. We've lost Olivier Bernard's audio, which is absolutely superb music. He's trying to do that for all 20 episodes. There he is.
I really fear that another season under Mike Ashley would see the club going down. I think that's how I see things. There's not going to be that many players who would want to stay under Mike Ashley. Yeah. Because he hasn't got any ambition and he's prepared to sell. Yeah. So I'm very, in that sense, I want it to happen. It's difficult, difficult time.
I know we've both talked about the fans there in particular, and Mark, you half referenced it there, but obviously Newcastle United Supporters Trust have become heavily involved in this. And they claim that, they've spoken to Amanda Staveley as well with regards to it. So I'm delighted to say that joining us this evening is one of the board members for the Newcastle United Supporters Trust, and that is Greg Tomlinson, back on the show. I can't remember how long it was ago. Are we talking in weeks? Are we talking in takeover terms? I'm not entirely sure, because that was clearly decades ago that the takeover talk started. Greg, great to see you, mate. A really daft question, but how are you getting on, eh?
Hi, good to see you. Yeah, it was right at the start of coronavirus lockdown, I think, because I haven't had a haircut since. Yeah. And, probably a little bit different, but, yeah. It was right at the start of all of the talk around the takeover. Yeah.
Right at the start of coronavirus, right at the start of takeover talk, which both have been going on for far too long than any of us would have wanted. Greg, obviously we have you on to talk about it because developments over the last 4 or 5 days, prevalent in the local news, prevalent in the national and international news now with regards to this takeover. Obviously the Saudi Arabian consortium, apparently pulling out. We haven't heard anything from Premier League yet. Just firstly, I've asked Ollie and Mark this, but I just want to get your personal reaction as a fan and as a Newcastle United Supporters Trust board member as to the developments last Thursday.
Well, I think the main reaction really is around actually what's gone on. So it's been clear throughout this process that football supporters and football fans don't matter to the Premier League, and that people who are arguably the most affected by a decision in terms of their club, and not withholding, there are other people who were affected and impacted by what goes on here, but are at the bottom of the pile and have absolutely no say really. And that our call really is that we want to understand what's gone on here and have some transparency really in terms of what's gone on with the Premier League, because it just it seems very odd that it's just gone into this 16-17 week period of no comment, still no decision from the Premier League. The consortium have obviously pulled out. or made a statement saying they pulled out. So yeah, what does that mean? I guess nobody really knows. But one thing we do know now, seemingly for the first time properly, really truly, is that the Mike Ashley wants to sell the club and is willing to sell the club.
Yeah, I suppose that is a positive out of it. Just again, Greg, before we kind of open things up here, we were just chatting before we brought you on about whether this is now dead in the water. There are some believing that there is still hope. There are others believing that, attentions are going to be turned elsewhere to sell the club. Obviously, we've heard about Amanda Staveley talking with the Newcastle United Supporters Trust on a phone call. From your perspective, from the Supporters Trust, is this still on with regards to the Saudi Arabian takeover? Is it just postponed for now, or is it indefinitely off, do you feel?
So we can't talk for the people who are trying to buy the club. Our chair, Alex, had a conversation with Amanda Staveley on Saturday. We set that out in terms of what that conversation was. She was, expressing, I guess, some, her view in terms of the fans having a role here. As she did when in comments that were quoted to her in the press over the last few days. So I mean, can't really speak for her, but clearly, the time really is to try and get some answers from the Premier League, just in terms of what's gone on, the clarity of their processes. It's almost like they've tried to just ignore it until it goes away, which really is not good enough, is it?
How much of an epitome of this situation do you think is it that? On the one side, we've got Lee Charnley saying Mike Ashley is still 100% committed to this deal. And on the other hand, you've got Amanda Staveley and the Saudis saying it's game over. I mean, the confusion still reigns ultimately, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does actually in that sense. Yeah. So, but equally, there was some quotes over the weekend from people involved in the deal saying that if they could get it through the Premier League, they'd resurrect it tomorrow. So, we don't really, know the details there, but, clearly there's a desire from all parties, buyer and seller, to do a deal, and it's obviously hit the buffers in this regard. But, the main one from us, again, is just to stand up for fans in the process, really, and to have some transparency into what's gone on. We took a decision to write as a trust to Richard Masters, in favour of the takeover, based on the fact that 97% of our members told us that they wanted this to go ahead.
Yeah.
That says as much as anything that Newcastle fans are fed up and are very much in the anyone but Ashley camp. That's the main thing that says, I think. But, we want to call for unity across the whole of the North East, just to demand answers from the Premier League about process. There might be really good reasons why the Premier League don't want this takeover to go ahead, and they might be very legitimate. But
so
if they are, they need to tell us.
What's the reason?
We don't know, do we? No, but it's all hidden.
I know.
Well, there's been a multitude of reasons, hasn't there, been put out? I mean, obviously the Saudi Arabian consortium said they run out of patience. Obviously, piracy has been up there as one of the main reasons. The logistics, who's going to be, actually leading the club and making the decisions, has been another one put forward. It's just confusion.
But there is a need for clarity. That's what everyone's saying, isn't it? That's why they must are trying to do this, because we need clarity. If it was going to fail on piracy, then let people know, and then we can move on, or the adjustments can be made. If it is going to fall down on human rights, then let people know. There needs to be clarity, and this is a problem with the Premier League, and it's been a problem right the way through this process. I realise there are issues that they can't put out, and there is certain things that they won't be able to say because it is a confidential process.
Yeah.
Supporters are becoming increasingly marginalised in football, and this is just another example of it. We look at the decision to, continue playing the Premier League. It's been done for money reasons. It's just increasingly supporters are being their influence on the game is being lessened, and people like the trust are the ones that are trying to give supporters a say, and fair play to them, because I think they played this brilliantly over the last few days, and it's all with a view, and I think we should say, Greg, I don't think it's to try and resurrect the deal. It's purely to get clarity on where things are being delayed or where they're falling down.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with what you said there, Mark, and really thank you for those comments, because, we are just, we're a bunch of volunteers who are helping lead this organisation of 10,000 people in our spare time, and all we're really fighting for here, we're not going in to support anybody here. We just want clarity and answers on a process where we're the last ones to know. And, football fans are the ones who, without football fans, what is a game of football? we've seen what it's like at the moment with coronavirus, but we don't have football, and by no means are Newcastle fans alone in this. I have a good friend at work who's a Charlton Athletic supporter.
Yeah.
The treatment they've had from some horrific owners has been diabolical. Look what's just happened at Wigan Athletic. I mean, horrific. And Sheffield Wednesday as well. And I think the Premier League need to come out here, and if they are ready, like you just said, if they are going to turn down this takeover, and they're playing a key role, and they're saying, look, we're here to safeguard your football club from something, then they need to come out and say it. But they can't just hide behind this wall of a confidential process completely. And yes, everybody's really excited about this takeover because of what it may bring, in terms of the wealth that it may bring.
Yeah.
But Newcastle United needs an owner that will care for it and will strive for it to be the best. And that doesn't need the most wealthy group in the whole wide world. It just needs somebody with sufficient wealth and sufficient, I guess, ambition to actually run it properly. That's what we need.
Just to interject on that point, Greg, there's been a few stories in the last couple of days, almost like sharks circling a carcass, of multiple people who might be interested in it. Obviously, Henry Morris has been at the forefront of it. There was another billionaire I saw linked with the club today. From a Newcastle fan perspective, the fact that this has come so close with the Saudi Arabian consortium, so close to being one of the richest clubs in the world, would it matter regarding who Newcastle United are eventually, hopefully, sold to, bearing in mind the riches that could have been there? Or does it really not matter as long as you say, like that there is ambition there for the club?
To me, it doesn't, but to a lot of people it will, I suspect, judging by the reaction. I think that's what I said at the beginning. So many people now, understandably, are in the anyone but Ashley camp because of how bad he has, run the club, be it renaming St James's Park, no investment, sports director everywhere, So, but no, it doesn't necessarily need. If there is someone who can come along and do a deal and pass the tests tomorrow, and will, develop the club, will invest in the infrastructure, and will build that on properly and sustainably, then great. But equally, we're just going to have to wait and see. It does sound like a missed opportunity, particularly around the investment in the region. It sounds like these guys were really keen to, really invest in the region. The Reuben brothers have property. They own the race course and all of that. So we just have to wait and see.
But Ollie, you still have... Sorry.
Looking at that, Craig, do you not think there's a bit of jealousy? When we talk about the Premier League and the takeover, and everybody, I feel like it's pure jealousy more than tourist.
I think there's a fair bit of that, and I think geopolitics has clearly come into it. Being the president, chairman of beIN Sports, wrote to all of the 19 Premier League clubs urging them to object to the deal. So I think you've always been up against it in that regard. But yeah, it seems to be, just look at ended up in the World Trade Organization. There's a massive dispute between Qatar and Saudi Arabia. That's ongoing. And this seems to have got stuck in a bit of that, I think.
Yeah, and it's also sorted out. I mean, just following on from what you were saying there, Ollie, these other 19 Premier League clubs, so Liverpool and Tottenham were the two clubs that were, written down on paper as being vocal against this potential deal. What sort of knock-on effect eventually when fans are allowed back inside the stadium, Greg, do you think that that's going to have? Because there's going to be quite a bit of animosity you would expect from Newcastle fans, knowing that Liverpool and Tottenham opposed it, surely.
Potentially, yeah, that's an interesting one, because I was thinking about this the other day, actually, and I think if you're a Premier League club owner, actually, I would have thought the majority of club owners actually would be in favour of this deal, because fundamentally as businessmen, they'll be looking at some point, I need to get out of this football club and I need someone to pay me top whack, and I want the whole pool of buyers available to me when I need to get out and I need some money, which might happen. It sounds like Mike Ashley really wants 300 million quid right now. With what he's got going on in his other business areas, So, but yeah, what will that mean in the future? I guess we'll wait and see. Depends where it goes. But I think we'll probably reach out to their trusts actually, and see their views. as other trusts, really. But yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it?
That's with regards to the clubs. What's the trust's next steps, do you feel, in terms of, obviously, you speak about Alex Hurst, the chair, speaking to Amanda Staveley over the weekend. What is next on the agenda now? Or is it simply a case of waiting and seeing if the Premier League reply?
Oh, it's not. No, I think, we have to unite and have to come together and really push forward and look to get answers. So we had a board meeting yesterday. We're meeting every night this week to try and work through a plan. One of the key things we need to do is to try and find a way to get our members more involved in the day-to-day running. So we've got some ideas coming there. We're hoping to be in a position to have a big online meeting type thing, 500 odd people live streamed on YouTube at some point, that type of thing. We're working on all of those things, and then keep trying to push that. I don't know if you saw today that we had the news from the Independent Football Ombudsman.
Yes, easy for you to say.
That they have no jurisdiction here, but they will advise the Premier League to come out and say something. Yeah. So looking, and I think really, the Newcastle fan base has has its ways, and it has its divisions at times. And the one thing I've learned from being involved in the trust and other activity I got involved with in the past is that it can be a bit of a poison chalice. You put your head above the parapet and you just get a lot of abuse at times. When you're actually just giving up your free time to try and strive for the best for your fellow fans. And that time, that all of that has to just go. Everyone needs to come together. Ideally, that's through the trust. We are the only organisation that is formally constructed, formally regulated. We have directors. We report to various bodies. Our accounts are audited. They're published. It's all transparent. If you don't like what the board is doing, vote us off at the next election. But tight and do it yourself. But it's time to really unite behind one banner and try and push for answers for the supporters.
And I think it's that word, isn't it? United, ultimately. Divided, get nowhere. United, every chance of be succeeded. Listen, Greg, we really appreciate your time, because I know obviously it's voluntarily done as well. So we appreciate your time, not just tonight, but earlier on. So it's almost like bookending the entire saga with yourself there. So thank you very much for both of your appearances this season, mate. And I'm sure come the start of 2020-2021 in September, we'll be straight back on the phone to you again and booking you back in, where I'm sure there's been 7 or 8 twists and turns before that.
Might have had a haircut by then. So.
Don't make keep growing it. Looks good on you.
That's sure. Cheers, guys. Have a good show.
Top man. Take it easy, Greg. See you later.
Bye.
That's, of course, Greg Tomlinson from the Newcastle Utd Supporters Trust. Guys, just a couple of quick final ones on this before we finally move on from Newcastle Tech. I, for one, am delighted for a few weeks just away from it personally, but don't know about you. Just looking at the future or immediate future for Newcastle, we kind of touched upon this before. How concerned are you for the club with the state that it is in right now, without any prospective takeover going on after this, quite frankly, draining affair over the last 17 weeks?
Come back to the word clarity, don't we? And we don't know what's happening at the club. I know it's kind of the business as usual mantra has been put out there. There are players being linked. There's a number of players being linked today. So you presume that transfer business is ongoing in whatever way that is. As I said earlier, I think away from the club there just needs to be a little bit of a period of contemplation and reflection on what's gone on. And the Supporters Trust clearly doing their bit to try and get clarity from the from the Premier League. One thing I would say is maybe Newcastle fans should shy away from pushing the comments made by a certain former editor of a newspaper today. That's personal feelings on that. I'm
glad you didn't mention his name, though. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I don't even want to mention the paper he wrote. He was editor of. But no, I just think for the football club now, there's a need for someone to take leadership, whether that's Steve Bruce or Lee Charnley, and really try and navigate through the next 4 or 5 weeks ahead of the new Premier League season, refresh the squad. There is clear deficiencies in that squad that need looked at. There are loan players that there are decisions need to be made. Personally, and this is just personal opinion, I don't think there's any loan player there that I would actually bring in permanently. I think they need to look elsewhere. So there is a responsibility for the main decision makers at Newcastle now to get that squad and get the club in a position to start the new season and to get them in a position to start the season on the front foot instead of what they have done recently, where it's been very much away from the front foot. It's been a slow start, and that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, it is. Ollie, just final word from you on this. Steve Bruce has talked about wanting clarity. He wanted a decision being made towards the end of the season. A decision in some way, shape or form, regardless of who it was by, has seemingly been made. At least from a Steve Bruce perspective, if you put yourself in his shoes, at least he can now get on with preparing for the season rather than waiting until a week before the season for a decision to be made, surely.
Yeah.
I was looking on the bright side there, mate. By your reaction, that's not a positive.
No, for me, the clarity is a top level.
Yeah.
If there's no clarity in the office, then your employees will be in the dark. So it's easy for us to put a light into it and think that it's going to go well in terms of transfer windows. But as a manager, you always want players that's gonna better your side. And right now, how much are we talking in transfer windows? We haven't been given a number to say that we're going to spend X amount of money.
I think it was rumoured about £35 million plus player sales.
So what, you get in one player or 18 years old. So where are we going with that? And you're going to get, where do you need to strengthen? A few positions. And that's where the dilemma starts. Yeah. So for me, it's a nightmare in the sense that the club still belongs to Mike Ashley. He wants to sell, so he's got no, he's not going to invest in the club, and he's not going to, be prepared to do anything else. Yeah. To that point, 30 millions, I'm afraid, we're nowhere near. Nowhere near. Even the bottom teams who went down, the Champions League spend more than that. So where are we going? You're going to have to sell players to get players. Yeah. Which you're not better in your side. You just, maybe you're going to have a better starting 11, but then you'll have no subs. Yeah. It's just awkward for me to think that under Mark Ashley, I think we'll go down this year.
This year coming, you think Newcastle will go down?
We'll go down, yeah. We'll be in the bottom three easy.
I think that the level of money that's spent isn't important. It's that whatever level of money is spent in the right way. So, Ollie is right. If you're going to go and get a top-class player, then you're probably going to have to spend over 30 million, 25 million. But if you can find the right player for cheaper, and that's where it comes down to Newcastle's scouting department, which, has been, we could say, hitty-missy recently. But there are, there are players out there that are available. Someone like Ryan Fraser's available on a free would be a good signing. There are apparently players available for loan that they could bring in. I think Callum Wilson's been linked. I think he would be a massive improvement, massive upgrade.
On Bournemouth, they're going to be looking. They just got 40 million for Ake. They'd be looking at 25.
Well, fair enough. But then there are players that will go out in Newcastle as well that have maybe just come to the end of the time. I just think as well that there may be a good chance for some of the younger players at the club to step up and maybe fill squad spaces as well. So I don't think it's necessarily a case of we have to spend 50, 60, 70 million. If you're a Newcastle fan, it's a case of can that money, whatever is spent, be spent the right way?
Spent wisely. Well, I'll tell you what.
That's me trying to be positive.
No, I'm delighted you were, mate, because that means I can leave the takeover talk on a positive note, because I don't want to go back to Ollie looking bad, look at his face right now.
It didn't work. Honestly, it didn't work. We can turn it and put it in a better way, but in the end of the day, 30 million is one player. Yeah.
Well, it was what was bid for Boubacar Samari back in January, if reports were led to be played.
We managed to spend 40 millions on Joe Linton. And I think, it's one signing we'll make out of that money. Yeah. And that's the problem, because if we do that, then it's hit and miss again. Yeah. So it was a miss. I think Joe Linton will come out and be a better player. At some point, hopefully, cross fingers. and you need to rely on another signing.
Yeah. I don't like it when you're not upbeat, Ollie. I know why, and you've got to be realistic at the end of the day. And we're here to talk facts rather than.
That's the problem. The fact is, I'll be surprised if we win. Because what I know is that the players who are here now, the better players will be gone.
Yeah, well,
that's a fact.
There's a long time to go. I mean, I say a long time. 5 weeks sounds a long time, but it probably isn't in the football sense. Before the start of a new season, you need the players in. You need to bed them into pre-season. You need to get them set up in the system. It's hardly any time, is it, to get everyone prepared? So Newcastle, you imagine it's going to be quite busy around St James's Park, or not, as the case may be, before the start of a new season. And who knows? There might still be twists and turns with regards to the takeover. All I can say is I'm half delighted and half not delighted that we shan't be talking about it every single Monday night, because it is quite frankly become very, very boring indeed, as I'm sure everyone involved at Newcastle United would say as well. But let's move on. We talk transfers. Nice sachet into Middlesbrough because they've been busy, or Neil Warnock has been busy, obviously taken on as Middlesbrough manager. Got Newcastle on the brain now, haven't I? Taken on as Middlesbrough manager and straight into the transfer side of things. I think he said last week, I've contacted every single player that I want. I expect an answer back from them by Monday. If I don't hear from them, I move on to the next target. Very decisive, as you'd expect from Warnock. First one in through the door is Grant Hall from QPR, who left QPR. That's a pretty decent signing, that, Mark, in terms of the leadership, defensive stability and solidity that he brings, and the experience that he has in the Championship as well.
So I think the key word is the last one you used there. It is experience of the Championship. And I think what Neil Warnock will do throughout the summer is identify players that can bring experience of that level to work along the very promising youngsters that they've got in that Middlesbrough squad. But it's this decisive nature of Warnock's that will benefit Middlesbrough this summer. You know, they can't have anything hanging over from last season when... I should point out I was the only one that tipped him to stay up on here a couple of weeks ago. I always had confidence that his
being pessimistic.
I always think that or thought that his nous of the Championship and getting results at tough places would keep them up. There is still a lot of very talented players in that Middlesbrough squad, but admittedly there are some that are coming towards the end of the time at the club have maybe just overstayed the welcome a bit. So I think there is a need for a refresh, and what better manager to have at the Championship level than Neil Warnock to really give them a chance of, at very least, heading towards mid-table next season, if not higher.
There's a lot of talk of Grant Hall being made captain as well, potentially next season.
I think it would be a good decision. You know, you look at what he did at QPR, the role he had there. I just think this is a sort of signing that shows that Warnock means business. It's maybe not an eye-catching one in that people could have expected maybe one of his former players that's a bit more, what's the word? A bit more eye-catching.
Warnocky.
Warnock, let's not use that word. But yeah, I just think it's a sort of signing that signals that Middlesbrough won't be messed around next season as they maybe could have been this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see 4 or 5 more like this.
Just on Grant Hall, Ollie, before we move on to Sunderland, is it, well, with any club, I suppose, with any signing, once a player leaves a club to go to another one, how good is it for a supporter of the club where the player is arriving to see the reaction from the supporters of the other club? Because there was a lot of supporters from QPR saying, we shouldn't be letting him go. He shouldn't be going. We should be trying to keep hold of him, etc. It shows how much of an impressive player Hall is and what he can do for Middlesbrough, doesn't it?
He's a reference, he's a reference in the Championship, and he's played at the highest level, know what to do and how to do it. He's one of them players that you put on the pitch, and regardless of away or home, he'll play the same way and score that goal if you give him the opportunity.
Yeah,
it's probably what Middlesbrough needs right now.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased. But as supporters, when you've got your supporters who are unhappy, that you're leaving, they see quality. The fans see the quality that they're and they've lost a big player, not only on the pitch, but probably the experience that he could have brought to the team, the squad.
and 4 or 5 more of them, and Middlesbrough fans will be even more delighted, I think, by the start of the season, which we did mention last week. The Championship next season, by the way. What on earth is that going to be like with the teams in there? Now we know it's Watford, Bournemouth and Norwich all the way down. Obviously, then you chuck Wickham into the mix. You chuck the ones that survived. Then the ones that aren't going up, Brentford or Fulham are going to be in there at some, one of them definitely. So, the Championship is going to be a very intriguing league to watch once again next season, as it seems to be every single campaign. Busy at Boro, busy at Sunderland as well. Phil Parkinson being very, very decisive early on. I know we've talked very negatively about Sunderland in the last few weeks. It's quite difficult not to, I suppose, with all the, all the goings on over there at the Stadium of Light. But they have been busy. Aidan O'Brien, firstly, I want to talk about. Striker in from Millwall. Great experience. I think he got Millwall up from League One, actually. A good signing that for Sunderland, isn't it, Matt?
It is. Again, we talk about experience at that level. He clearly brings that. We should mention the little dig that Sunderland's social media team had at the Newcastle's expense with the announcement of this signing, but we shouldn't take away from what is a very good signing. A little bit like Warnock, Phil Parkinson knows League One. He knows what's needed. It feels like a very League One style signing, the sort of player that will possibly get you out of that division, but maybe will not make it at the level above. I think Sunderland now, they need to make more signings like this. I know they've brought in another one or two, and they do need a goalkeeper as well. I should say John McLaughlin going. I know they've still got Burge, but I think they need someone to really challenge or be the number one. So there's a lot of work still to do for Phil Parkinson. And again, and I hate comparing Newcastle with Sunderland, but there is a situation with the ownership at Sunderland as well, where nobody kind of knows what's going on with that at the moment. So it's a tough one for Parkinson this summer because of the cloudy nature of what's going on in the background. But again, he can navigate them through this. I think you saw signs last season that he was starting to get things right, and he was starting to get his methods and his style of management over to his players. But again, there is a lot of work needs done on that Sunderland squad, and there isn't much room for manoeuvre for him.
No, but one thing that we have to say is we've all of us have been relatively negative in terms of how can Sunderland attract players to the Stadium of Light, given the chaos that is taking place off the pitch. Bailey Wright plays 5 games on loan from Bristol City last year, and Phil Parkinson's managed to persuade him to sign a full-time deal at Sunderland. That's a pretty big coup for Sunderland, isn't it, Ollie, at League One level? And it shows that still sometimes they can attract bigger name players, shall we say.
Of course, it all goes with the manager. If the manager is confident in what he's saying and the plan that he's got for the football club or the football team, then you'll have players who are interested into the challenge. But you need to be that kind of manager to bring the attention to the player and make sure they stay with you. So it must be a good. They must have clicked really well.
I think they did, and he's a superb player as well, Bailey Wright.
Well, I think that the big thing to say is, Sunderland's a big club at that level, a massive club at that level. Let's be honest here. And if the financial right,
Daz isn't here, Ollie. Daz isn't here.
if Sunderland can get the financial package right for a player, they'll be able to attract more of that calibre. He clearly made an impression, but more so, the club clearly made an impression on him. So, again, there will be a need for more signings of his calibre. I hope that's an accidental yawn, Ollie.
No, sorry.
The episodes.
There is a need for more players like that, but it shows that Parkinson is getting his say in the transfer market, and hopefully it'll continue over the next few weeks.
Still a lot of work to be done, like you rightly say, to that squad. A lot of repair, and hopefully, like you say, Phil Parkinson can work his magic. Exciting times for Middlesbrough and Sunderland. Interesting, shall we say, I think is the best way to describe times at Newcastle. Let's go down the leagues, though, finally, before we move on to our final act of the campaign and act of the season. Any other business in the lower leagues? We talk signings. There's been a big one in terms of an attacking signing at South Shields, Matt.
There's been a big one in terms of a defensive signing, I think.
Sorry, defensive. I'm still talking about Aidan O'Brien here at.
We'll say that's end of season fatigue.
Just because I don't show it like Ollie and yawn doesn't mean I'm not tired.
And linked to Sunderland as well. Jordan Hunter, former Sunderland under-23 defender, rejected a 1-year deal to stay at Sunderland. It was a 1-year deal with the option of a further year, but has signed a 3-year contract at South Shields, which is a major sign of their intent. Jordan, for me, is someone who could comfortably play Football League. I said that a number of times last season. He came through Liverpool's academy, went to Sunderland, did well in their 23s, had a great loan spell at South Shields last year. I took part in the Northern Premier League's podcast to decide their team of the year, and Jordan was overwhelmingly voted as the best right back in that division. I see no reason why he won't be the best right back in that division yet again next season. And it's 2 good pieces of business from South Shields, because they've already brought in Miles Boney from Blackpool, who impressed down loan last year. So a good start to the summer for them.
Solid start. And just one final one for now on any other business. Hartlepool have been blooming busy from what I saw from the note you sent me before we started recording. 5 new signings in Victoria Park.
They certainly have, yeah. Dom Skur, who's on the show, who covers Hartlepool for the Mail, has been busy. A number of former loan players have signed permanent deals. Mark Shelton, the one that's probably the most known. Gary Little brings experience as well. Josh McDonald as well, who not so long ago was on loan at Whitley Bay in the Northern League from Halifax Town. He will bring excitement. He's a good forward, very strong, very quick and nimble. So good signings, and again, a good start of the summer. And I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I apologise for that. But there is more work needed at Hartlepool, and I think everyone will be aware of that. But in Chalna, they've got someone who knows the league. Again, I keep saying that, but he is that calibre of manager. He is someone who will get the best out of players at that level.
Mate, you've been on this show 5 years. Repetition is something that we've come to expect from you.
That is true.
It's okay.
Repetition of talking sense, that's what it is.
Really?
50 split, I think, on that one.
Well, one of us has got to, Ollie.
Wish we had a referee here. Shouldn't I be doing that job? Anyway, just one final one before we go on to the Premier League team of the... I just want to mention one. Spennymoor striker Glenn Taylor named National League North team this season, which is a fair accolade indeed in terms of the quality that's taking on in National League North. But Glenn obviously banging away the goals once again. And the only North East based player in the side, I gather. So
I would say that's harsh on a couple. Particularly Greg Olly at Gateshead, Brad James possibly at Gateshead as well, and also Will Hatfield at Darlington had a great season.
I think all 3 should have been in as well, alongside Glenn.
Real chance, yeah. But Glenn is comfortably one of the best strikers at that level. Someone I've got no doubt could do it higher as well. But his commitment to Spennymoor is commendable. It's obvious that he loves the club and the club love him, and why wouldn't they? Because he's the all-round striker. He's got a bit of everything, bit of pace, bit of power, good in the air. The perfect National League North striker.
Is indeed. Ollie, we needed more signings for Durham on here. You know that, right?
You do not worry about Durham.
You're keeping your cards close to your chest with regards to Durham's plans for the new season, mate.
Please do not worry. You'll see in the FA Cup. You'll see it in the league. You do not worry. I don't want to talk too much because, you can always lose players. But right now, my squad is strong.
I don't think you need to talk too much. I can almost feel the confidence oozing through my webcam right now.
You can. Trust me.
I've never done nothing but trust you, my friends. So I think we'll be all right with that from a Durham perspective. Very finally, guys, last act of the season. We're going to rattle through this because we've got about 10 minutes or so for it. Premier League Team of the Year. Now, we were judging whether to do this at the end of the episode or an extra Football Matters. We decided to do it, or I decided rather to do it all in one episode because I feel that there's not going to be too many arguments between the two of you with regards to most of the positions here. We've gone for... Probably not. Okay. That's why I was absolutely delighted when Del said he couldn't make the show, because I knew for a fact that the arguments are going to necessarily be cut out. But we've gone for 4-3-3 with regards to the formation. So let's get straight into it. Premier League Team of the Year. I'm especially interested in centre midfield here. But we'll start with the goalkeeper, obviously. Mark, who have you got between the sticks?
Well, I think it's kind of a toss-up between the top two in the league with this one. So it's Edison or Alisson. I was going to go a bit different, go Nick Pope. Because
I wondered what you were going to... I thought you were going to go and say Edison and Nick Pope, bearing in mind 16 clean sheets.
I think the thing with Pope is he probably... he unquestionably faces more shots than the other two. But I just think in terms of the style of play of both Liverpool and Man City, their keepers have been vastly important to that.
Yeah.
It's a toss of a coin, but I've gone for Edison. But it could have easily been Alisson.
Yeah. Okay. Edison for you. Ollie, you sounded on about Nick Pope there.
Yeah, I was. Do you know what? I've watched him all season, and the quality is a real shot stopper.
Yeah.
Yes, he's not your better players. Playing football, type very English in his way of goalkeeping, but for me, it deserves to be amongst the top three. Definitely.
I was chatting to, we were doing the Burnley press conference the other week with Sean Dyche before Pope was, it was before the final day of the season, and Pope was still in line to win the Golden Glove at that time. And a local reporter asked Sean Dyche about Nick Pope and, what attracted him to it. And Dyche's answer, typically Sean Dyche, shall we say, he was big and he stopped the ball from going in the net. And he had a pretty decent attitude for a young kid, was his answer, which I thought summed Nick Pope up absolutely brilliantly, to be honest. So between Edison and Pope, you know what? I said right at the start of doing this team, I didn't want to go for the obvious every single time. I'm going to go Nick Pope. Edison has the Golden Glove trophy, so he can be content with that. Nick Pope gets the better option of winning all that as a player.
I would say as well, he deserves the right to have a shot at being England's number one.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he is the better English goalkeeper in England.
I'd say between him and Henderson now, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think dropped off.
I still think it's better.
Yeah,
I'm sure we had this argument when we talked about England's Euro 2021 team.
And then we went for Jordan Pickford.
And then we went for Pickford anyway. Yeah. But I must say, I agree. Pope is probably number one right now. But whether Southgate sticks with Pickford or not remains to be seen.
Remember when you said not to pick the obvious one? I've got a feeling the next one will be the obvious one.
No, not necessarily. You might shout him out to be the obvious one, but yes, go on. Let's go with the back four. Mark first, from right back to left back.
Well, I'm not having anyone else suggested at right back. It is Trent. It has to be. He's probably the best young player, unquestionably the best young player in the league. Very boring here, but Andrew Robertson at left back.
Yeah.
Exceptional season once again.
Yeah.
Two centre backs, Virgil van Dijk, best centre back in the league, possibly, and the world.
Yeah.
And beside him, just to go a little bit different, I've gone with Johnny Evans.
Good. Yes,
he's had a good season at Leicester. Played a big part in their push for Europe. I was going to go very obvious and go for another top player in the Champions League places, but I just think, for me, Johnny Evans, I just model consistency.
I like Evans. That's a great shout for Evans, and different as well, like you said. Ollie, any advances on that back four? Pretty solid.
No, we're not going to have too much argument over the left back and right back position with Van Dijk in the middle. Yeah, we could give a chance to maybe what's his name? Manchester centre back,
Maguire.
Who has a decent. I don't think he was as good as his time as Leicester, but I think he hold that Manchester defence and managed to finish in a decent position. So I would think about him as that back four at Manchester was not great.
No, it wasn't before. You're right. There is one name that I do want to throw into the mix in terms of centre backs. I even though I want to do things differently, you're both right. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Andy Robertson, you would struggle to replace them. Connor Cody, I think has had an absolutely superb season quietly at Wolves, especially given the number of games that he has played, and to skipper that side. And I like Johnny Evans as a shout, Mark. I thought it was a great shout, and he's not only been impressive in terms of his own game, he's been impressive in bringing Chagalar Shoonshu through as well.
He was the other one I was going to mention. So
yeah.
He's had an excellent first season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, to be honest, Cody or Evans would be a good shout alongside Van Dijk.
Yeah. Tell you what, just because I'm not going to get my choice many of the time, and Cody is right up there. Although Evans having Cody. No, tell you what, we're going to go back for Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk, Connor Cody, and Robertson. So we needed someone in there. So a midfield 3. Ollie, let's come to you on a 3. You can be as attacking or as defensive as you wish with regards to this.
For me, Wijnaldum.
Wijnaldum, okay.
Yeah. Maddison.
Oh, he is going different. This is why I went to Ollie first. This is tremendous. Right, go on.
Maddison and I forgot his name now. I should have wrote it down, really.
Henderson?
He's called Kevin De Bruyne.
I was going to say one of the two, surely.
No, I was going to put him. I was going to put it in the front 3. I think.
Right.
But yeah, I thought that.
Yeah, if you want to put it in midfield, no problem. I'll have him anywhere. He can play.
You'd have him in goal, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So yeah, De Bruyne. Yeah, top
Go
3.
De Bruyne alongside.
Good balance.
Very good balance that. Okay, interesting. Mark, what's your advances on a 3? We'll throw out some honourable mentions as well.
Obviously, De Bruyne is player the season. Henderson as well, just been outstanding this season. Proper leader. My third one, and I know it's a team of the season, and yeah, I'm going with this. And you like to judge it over the whole season, but I think given the impact that was made when he signed for Manchester United, Fernandes has to be in. I just think he's took a very, I'm not going to say an average team because that's doing a bit of disrespect, but a team that was probably going to struggle to finish in European places or he's just lifted them so much. He's got the best out of players around him. It's no coincidence that the likes of your Martials and Rashfords and players like Greenwood, they've all improved because they've had him behind them. So I'm always wary of putting in players who haven't played a whole season in the Premier League, but I think his impact dictates that he has to be in that 3.
Good shout. Yeah, I thought you would come on to Fernandes in fairness, but I'm going to throw out some honourable mentions in there. John Egan at Sheffield United has had an absolutely wonderful season. Obviously, Sheffield United, very, very, impressive campaign. Even though they just tailed off towards the end, can't knock them for the season. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg at Southampton is my other one that I'd written down out of left field. Southampton were literally, I thought, dead and buried by November.
John Moutinho at Wolves.
Yeah, Moutinho's in there without a shadow of a doubt.
Not Moutinho.
Not having Moutinho. Ollie's really against Moutinho.
No, because he doesn't play more than an hour, and it's just nah.
Yeah, what an hour though.
It's a great hour. Also, just as a kind of, and we have to talk about them a little bit considering they've just won the FA Cup. But one Arsenal midfielder who's vastly improved under Mikel Arteta. He started off like a house on fire, first 2 or 3 games of the season, dropped off, lost his place in the team, and under Arteta has become their real, almost the oil that makes the machine tick. Danny Ceballos. I thought he was magnificent. No, not Xhaka. I would go Ceballos.
Pepe.
I wouldn't put him in midfield. I'd be worried about him in midfield, but Pepe maybe towards the wingers, but no, I think Ceballos was magnificent against Chelsea. I really, really do. Obviously,
he's a good player. He's a good player. He's a very good player. Yeah. A bit too slow to my taste, but he's a very productive player. Productive.
Be interesting if Arsenal go in for him, at least on another loan. But De Bruyne is without a shadow. I mean, De Bruyne, I have to say, is my favourite player in the Premier League. He is a magician to watch, and his shot. I'm sorry, but does anyone strike a ball better than Kevin De Bruyne in the Premier League? If the world of football at the minute, you've got to go Henderson. Have to go Henderson because captaining, the Premier League champions, and he was brilliant all the way through. And we have to make one more point. We needed a North East representative in this team. So Jordan Henderson will sacrifice. Will be right in there. You know what? Just because I can't put Fernandes in because it's team of the season as much as I want to, and he has made the change that Manchester United did. But James Maddison was absolutely instrumental in Leicester going to the top 2, top 3.
We should point out that I think there's only one midfielder finished as his club's top goal scorer this season. We haven't even mentioned him.
Oh, hang on, who?
John Joe Shelvey.
Shelvey with 6.
Anyway,
yeah, exactly. That is the very epitome of where Newcastle are at the minute.
That was a joke, by the way.
Yes, I know.
That was a bad one.
That was a bad one. Pen down.
That was a bad one. That was a really bad joke.
We're going with Henderson, De Bruyne and Maddison. I think James Maddison needs an honourable mention in there, but I would have loved to put Fernandes in. He will be in next year, I imagine, considering how well he's settled into the Premier League. Finally, our 3 attackers. Who are we going for? Mark, let's start with you.
Well, 2 of them are technically wingers, but they do play as forwards. So Raheem Sterling, Sadio Mane, Jamie Vardy.
Interesting.
No, forget that.
Excellent. We have some debate on this one. You were very vehement there, Ollie.
Where did you put Aubameyang?
Here we go.
He was the one that I took out at the last minute for Sterling.
No,
I'd put Aubameyang in.
I'm not having that. I'm not having that.
You got to have Sterling in. He's had a great season.
Sterling, Aubameyang, and whoever you want, but them 2 has done it. They've done it. They've done it.
So who's your third?
Who's your 3 then, Ollie?
What did you say, Mark?
Raheem Sterling, Sadio Mane, Jamie Vardy.
I put Mane and Aubameyang in the middle, but I would let them choose and enjoy themselves. Go on, son.
Alongside who? With Vardy?
He's still...
No, Vardy's not even nowhere near. Nowhere
Vardy
near.
won the Golden Boot, Ollie.
No, nowhere near.
Finished top goal scorer in the Premier League.
Prediction. You want.
I like difference. You know me, mate. So
Aubameyang, Mane, and Sterling.
And Sterling. So you're dropping Vardy at plumbing heck.
Come on.
Can I just jump in with an additional?
Yeah, go on, Max.
I know we've been doing honourable mentions. I think someone who's been through injury hell over the last 3 years and hasn't really been a consistent performer, but had a great season. Danny Ings.
Yes.
Had a great
season. I was going to shout Ings.
Yeah, great season.
Yeah, he's done well, to be fair. He's done very well this year.
And another one for me, and not that it's really an unsung hero, and it's as much for what he's done off the pitch as he has done on it, but I think Marcus Rashford has been absolutely magnificent this season for Manchester United, both as an ambassador and as a footballer.
That's all right.
I was going to say Martial actually there, Ollie, but Rashford...
No, but they've both been all right this season, better than last season. I think they're getting better as a collective, but still not nowhere near the player they should have been, or they should be.
There's another couple of honourable mentions, from me. One is obvious, Raul Jimenez at Wolves, over 20 goals this season in all competitions, which was absolutely magnificent. Another
Traoré.
What, sorry, mate?
You could have said Traoré.
That's actually not a terrible... There was a few in Wolves, in fairness, that would have been on the fringes of that. Another one who you would argue, this isn't necessarily for his goal-scoring prowess, but the way he's handled himself because he was kicked out of the team and he's fought his way back to the first team. Olivier Giroud at Chelsea. Like, he's actually, not to make the actual team just an honourable mention, I wouldn't dream of putting him alongside Sterling, Vardy, Mane or Aubameyang, but the fortitude to do that, fair play.
To be fair, if you're looking at Chelsea, I'd also say Christian Pulisic.
Pulisic, yeah.
He's had great, yeah.
Towards the back end of the season, I would say, he's really started to come on. But the other one for me, and this is more of an emotional one as well, is David McGoldrick at Sheffield United. Certainly not for the amount of goals that he scored, but that lad works his socks off up front. And I was so delighted, even though the supporters weren't in to see it, but eventually to score his first Premier League goal for Sheffield United was magnificent. I'm going to have to make a decision here, boys. You're not going to like it. Sterling, Vardy and Aubameyang. Vardy has to be in as Golden Boot winner. Aubameyang literally has dragged Arsenal to the FA Cup win with 2 goals in the semi-final and in the final. And that incredible finish to win it against Zuma. And Sterling, like you say, Mark, tremendous season. First Englishman for Manchester City to notch over 20 goals since Brian Kidd, I think. So Yeah.
I think it's outrageous that you haven't put Sadio Mane in.
Yeah.
We've got enough Liverpool players in there.
Understandably, given what they did.
Well,
You could have just put the Liverpool side in there.
I'd put
They
Danny Ings ahead of
terrorised
Sadio
everyone.
Mane.
What? What a fitting way to end the season.
Not seriously, but I would. Mane would be the next best. But no, I can't leave Aubameyang out there, and I wouldn't drop Vardy because he's golden boot, and I wouldn't drop Sterling because I think he offers more threat. So Mane has to go out for me. Sorry, we've ended up on a real high note here, haven't we, boys? Neither of you look delighted with this eventual team, which is, can I just read out? Nick Pope in goal, Alexander-Arnold right back, Virgil van Dijk, Connor Cody, Andy Robertson, midfield three of De Bruyne, Maddison and Henderson, and the front three of Sterling, Vardy and Aubameyang.
I mean, it's not a bad side.
It's not bad, is it?
It's not the right one. It's
Better.
not a bad side.
It's not the right one, mate, because it's not the one you've got written down in front of you. But there's a bit of difference.
I can get away with Cody. I'll give you that one. But outrageous not to have Sadio Mane in.
Oh, you're fuming about this, aren't you? I thought you were going to go to Maddison in midfield, to be honest with you, Rob.
Yeah. Who got left out of midfield? Sorry, who got left?
Fernandes you weren't happy about, but it's team of the season.
Yeah, I could live with that. Actually, by the way, I probably would have said Jack Grealish as well.
Grealish was on the tip of my tongue, and then I thought, if he gets sold for 80 million, I'm not going anywhere near that. If he gets sold for 80 million, it'll be an incredible amount of money. But very, very good player, equally so. So that is the 4-3-3 Football Matters team of the season. And like that, gents, that is us done. I know we only started 20 weeks ago, so we can't really profess to have lasted throughout the entirety of the longest season in history. But I must say, from my perspective, it's been a brilliant season from a point of view that we actually managed to bring Football Matters back in some way, shape or form. Regardless of whether it's on Zoom rather than in a studio, but also as a podcast. It's been tremendous to have it back, tremendous to have various debates kicking off, and not necessarily talk about the Newcastle United takeover every single week, most weeks, but not every single week. So it's been a pleasure.
To be fair, some episodes have felt as long as the Premier League season's taken.
Including this one, which I said 40 minutes at the start, and it's an hour and 10 minutes currently. So, yeah. Ollie, I appreciate you need to go, mate. You have people to see, places to go. So listen, guys, thank you very much, as per usual. You've been an absolute delight. It's an honour to spend time with you on a Monday evening, and we'll be back again in 4 or 5 weeks to do it all again, eh?
Enjoy your holiday, boys. It's been a pleasure to be in your company for many weeks.
I can't wait for the first mean tweets of the season next year.
It's going to happen.
It is. I know it is. It is. Tremendous. And Mark, happy anniversary. Happy 5th year anniversary of Football Matters.
I'd love to say it's been an honour and a pleasure, but my mum always told us not to lie, so...
Well, I tried to end it on a high note anyway. And of course, thanks for our final episode, Darren Williams as well, who I hope will watch or listen back to this. Daz, it's been a pleasure as always, mate, and we'll speak to you very soon. And thank you very much to Greg Tomlinson, who was our final guest of the series. Thank you very much to all of our guests who have appeared on this series over the last 20 weeks, on Zoom or on Twitter as it started. It's been a pleasure to have you all. Thank you for sticking with us, and thank you to you all at home for watching, for listening, and most importantly, for sticking with us through one of the most testing times in our country and our world's history, I suppose, in terms of the coronavirus pandemic and in terms of football in the national sense and from a North East perspective. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching and listening. And we'll see you in 4 or 5 weeks. We're off to take a well-deserved holiday. Take care from all of us here on the Football Matters team. We will see you very shortly. Bye for now.